Hello, friends. My name is Tina from Quantum Healing with Tina and Karen. I'm a beyond quantum healing practitioner, a spirit releasement therapist, and an intuitive empath. If you haven't been here before, welcome. And thank you to all of our new subscribers for joining us in our family here on YouTube. So, welcome to all of you. Today, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this idea about higher beings. A lot of people in the spiritual community we're always looking for answers outside of ourselves into these higher spiritual beings. And we never even stop to question and ask, why is there this hierarchy of beings that we're supposed to be looking up to and asking for answers and just generally looking to them as if they're some kind of parents. And for me, what has come through my own being and my own guidance is that we need to start looking within ourselves for the answers and not necessarily to beings outside of us, because this realm is so corrupted. Even the higher realms are corrupted. In the Bible, they talk about, the different layers of the heavens and how Satan himself comes from the second layer and the demons come from the second layer of heaven. So even the higher realms in this realm, this reality, I guess we'll call it, or this world, this earth matrix, they're corrupted. So just because a being comes to you and says they're from the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth dimension does not mean that they know everything or that they have all the answers, or even that they're more evolved than we are as humans. There are plenty of beings that come from higher dimensions that are actually less evolved than humanity is. And we, in our naivete, just, take it upon ourselves to think that they are more advanced than us, when many of them might be advanced technologically, but they're not advanced spiritually when it comes to the heart. There are a lot of attacks happening right now with people using divination tools like pendulums and things like that. It's very easy for an entity to sneak in. So attacks are heightening, especially with what's going on in the world, with the war and things like that, and people getting sucked into the drama, the fear being generated. I mean, that is just like major loosh for these entities. The technologies, the AI is at an all-time high, and that can affect people's thoughts. People can just wake up one day and become suicidal from the thoughts that are being implanted in their minds, after using a pendulum or tarot or anything like that. I think it's important for us to stay away from those things now, unless you're a professional, you know how to use protection. You've been doing this for a long time. You understand energy and how these things work. If you're new to these kinds of things, the best way to get answers is really to stay away from all of that, anything that is taking you outside of yourself. And it's really about looking for the answers within, because we are the universe. Like, we have the universe inside of us. It's all right here in the heart space. It's not in the pineal gland. It's not in any other space. It's right here in the heart space. We have all of the infinite knowledge and wisdom of the universe within us, just as these higher beings do. It's within us too. And when we connect with ourselves, with our highest expression of self, our source self, the organic source self, we're able to tap in to find the answers that we're looking for through using our intuition. Now, the reason why I say organic source is because, as we've talked about before, the creator of this world that we're in is not organic source. The creator of this world is another entity altogether. And that entity, the sole purpose of it is to keep us trapped here. So we have to be very specific when we are connecting with spiritual beings. And even being specific when you're connecting with source, what many people in the spiritual community call source, because there are at least two, if not more, sources. And we have to be specific about who we're connecting with. So for example, like I will say, I'm connecting to the one true source, the inexpressible one, the one that cannot be named. That is the organic source from which all things have come. The source of this world is an archonic source. So that's not something that we want to be tapping into. Another thing to mention is that all of the gods, there's this like God matrix here. And all of these gods, whether they're Greek, Roman, whether they're even archangels and, Metatron is a big one, Ashtar that people are connecting with. All of these false gods are false idols is what they are. And when we are connecting with them or praying to them, we're feeding them our energy, and our energy is what keeps them alive. Our energy is what keeps them alive. And because we're at the end of this eon or the end of this era, what's happening with the gods is that they're degenerating. Just as like humanity on a whole is degenerated, devolving right now, so are the gods. And where before they used to support their cultures, whether that's, Hindu or Buddhist or whatever that is, where they used to be supportive of their cultures, they're no longer being supportive. They're devolving. So this is why I say it's important for us to only look within for the answers. Now, there's another part to that as well. In order for your answers to come through clearly from your inner being, you have to purify the vessel. So you have to purify in mind, body, and soul in order to have the answers come through clearly and precisely. And what does that usually mean for us as humans? It's healing the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual body, clearing your attachments, detoxing the physical body itself. That's also an important piece to finding clarity. And the most important part of that is healing our trauma. Because, what do people say all the time? Well, does that feel good to you? And, if I come to you to talk about negative entities, that might not feel good to you, but that's probably because you're holding trauma around that, whether that's religious trauma or whatever that is. That trauma is preventing you from feeling objectively. So when we're discerning truth, we have to discern it through a lens of objectivity, through neutrality, not through our own trauma. And that's the same with, reading other people. There might be something there between you and another person that is unresolved, and you're not able to discern that clearly because there's a trauma in the way, whether that's, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And then you're subconsciously seeing that other person as a competitor instead of a friend. That can lead to conflict. Do you see what I'm saying here? So it's the same when we're connecting with beings spiritual beings outside of ourselves. Because it's really difficult to know for sure who that being is that is presenting. And especially if you're using a pendulum and you're not visualizing or really connecting through the heart with that being, it's very easy for them to just slip in. So, first really comes the purification of the vessel, the letting go, the healing of the trauma. Then comes the discernment. And then comes your ability to see the truth more clearly. So the point of this video is to say, you have all the answers within you. You do not need to be connecting with any being outside of you and your highest self to find those answers. As humans, we have it all within us. We've just forgotten. We've forgotten our power. We've forgotten the truth of who we are because of the system that we keep coming back into over and over and over again, because again, we're trusting these higher beings who tell us, hey, we go over to the other side, we have our life review, which is all just part of this matrix system. The higher realms here, when we leave the body, seem to be also part of the whole system. And it's funny, I was listening to Michael Newton's book on Destiny of the Souls the other day, and a lot of information was coming through about the souls and the schools over on the other side and all of these different things and the guides. And the question was asked, well, what about the source of all this? What about the creator? Like, does anyone have contact with the creator? And the response was fearful. And I'm like, why would the response be fearful? Why would we be fearful of the creator, right? And what it seemed like to me is that they were tapping into the entity that is, at the top of this whole hierarchical pyramid that we're in right now. So we have to be careful what we're feeding our energy to. We have to be careful. That's what being sovereign is. Right now, everything is about sovereignty. You have to be sovereign in mind, body, and soul to really get a good grip in this world. Otherwise, you're just going to be kind of like washed around and, looking for answers outside of yourself, watching channelers, waiting for the next feel-good message. And let me tell you something, most of the messages that are coming through truthfully aren't going to be like super feel-good messages, because there's really not a lot to feel good about right now. And that's just the truth of it. But when you can be anchored in who you are and your sovereign self, that's not going to bother you. And you're not going to be looking for your next escape out of your reality. You're going to be able to anchor into your reality and deal with it more effectively. That's the point of healing. And I think it's important, when we talk about the matrix trap, and even the possibility that the higher realms are a part of all this, I think it's important that we don't take on a nihilistic view of life because of that, because it's really easy to kind of slip into that negativity. Well, there's so much fuckery going on here, and then we have to leave the body and encounter even more fuckery and, everything that potentially entails. And I get it, because it's like, what the hell, are we trapped here forever? How do we get out of here? But I do really believe, because I always go back to the secret gospel of John and Jesus's own words and him telling us, the truth will set you free. I do feel like knowing the truth that, about what happens after death and the whole tunnel experience and the being encountered, having the encounters with, potential family members or guides or beings that are going to make you feel this expansive type of love, that could actually be a trick. Um, I think this is why being sovereign is so important. And it's because if we are sovereign and know where we come from, that we come from the one, the inexpressible one, not the source of this world. And if we are presented with those entities and we know this, because there's also this in, oh God, what was that? It was another Nag Hammadi text. I'll have to link it down below for you because I forget the name right now. Oh, it was James. It was James, the Apocalypse of James. Jesus tells him like the specific words to say to the gatekeepers of this world, because the archons seem to be the gatekeepers. And it's interesting because I listened to a session a few years ago. It wasn't one of mine, it was someone else's. And she came in contact with this being who looked like Moloch. And he didn't really seem to be good or bad. He was kind of just like doing his job. And the way she saw him, he was like on top of this dome and kind of acting as the gatekeeper for people to come in and out of Earth. And he was kind of looking at her like, what are you doing here? Because it was during a session, right? A regression session. But the feeling she was getting from him was like, he's not necessarily bad. He's not necessarily good. He's just doing his job here, which is what I think all of these entities are ultimately doing. So if that's the case, and say we were encountered with that entity and he was asking, what are you doing here, whatever, and you're telling him, I'm returning home, I'm returning to the inexpressible one, the true source, then he would have to let you through. That's the gist of what Jesus was telling James in the apocalypse of James. So I'll link that down below too. And in the secret gospel of John as well, Jesus is alluding to the fact that this is all kind of set up as a trap, like the physicality of this realm is set up as a trap, and the archons are the ones that ultimately created this mess that we're in. And we keep getting tricked into coming back over and over again because the archons can take on whatever face they want. So they can present themselves as a family member. And there's this idea that we do consent to this. We do in the lives between live sessions that have been recorded, say by Michael Newton or Dolores, we are ultimately consenting to this, to these lives, because we're being tricked into that, to believing that we need to resolve some kind of karma or that our soul needs to learn and grow, all of these types of things. And it's because when we're down here in this physical reality, there's more loosh for them to feed from, because just as they, our negative emotions feed them the most, but they also do feed from our light because they can't create light on their own and they're not connected to their own original source expression. So they're feeding from us all the time. And this is why, we have these ups and downs. It's like, it's a sine wave. So it's always an expansion and contraction and expansion and contraction. That's why you go through these, ups and downs and ups and downs. It's never level. It's always up and always down, always up and always down. And that's what can make this reality so difficult to be in. But here's our chance. Here's really our chance. And we're faced with this. The ultimate truth is that we can break free from this. I really do believe that. I really do believe that we can break free from that if we can only, tap into that memory that we don't have to do this over and over. And think about it, why would our memory be wiped every time? Every time. It makes no sense. I don't know how anyone could really explain that. Why would we? I mean, what is the need to make life on earth here any harder than it already is? It's hard here. And as hard as it is, I think, like I was saying, it's important for us not to fall into that, the victimhood of it, the suffering of it, and those kinds of things, because that's where, you know, that negativity is almost worse than the trap itself, because that can really take you down. That can really, really take you down. So being sovereign in mind, body, and soul, really doing your best to purify the vessel, to know that you have all of the answers that you need within you, that you don't need to look outside of yourself. And, don't get pulled into the drama of the world, like the whole thing that's going on with the war right now. They want you to choose sides. They want you to choose sides. They want you to see Russia as the big boogeyman, and they want you to see Ukraine as, oh, poor Ukraine, and how good they are, and people are suffering there. People are suffering everywhere. This whole thing is created behind the scenes to steal and harvest your energy. It's all created to harvest your energy. So don't get sucked into that. Don't get sucked into the fear, the lack, the scarcity that they're trying to create. None of it is real. There's no shortage of oil. There's no shortage of gas. Like, this is all being created. And while it's difficult to navigate through, you have the power within you to do it. So don't let them steal your peace. Don't let them steal your peace. Remain as neutral as possible. And really, the combination of remote spirit release sessions and also having the hypnosis sessions to heal some of that trauma and really dig deep in there, it does really open up the path for you to maintain more of that power and sovereignty and ability to discern the truth, to see through all of the illusions and lies of the matrix world. Because if we can't see through that, it's so easy to get swept up in it, in that they're trying to ignite that emotion within you to align with, poor Ukraine. And they're trying to gain the consent, especially of, Americans. They're trying to gain the consent of the population to go to war. Meanwhile, they're all colluding behind the scenes to create this. So maintain your sovereignty, do the best you can. Don't let anyone steal your peace. Anyone, your neighbor, your kids, your dogs, your coworkers, don't let them steal that from you. Remain sovereign, remain in neutrality as much as possible, especially right now, because things are really so hard, and they're going to heat up and probably get worse over the next couple years, before they get better. And yeah, I'm sending you all of my love. And thanks so much for being here with me. I'll see you next time.